Okay, we're holding in Tractate Sotah, the 9th chapter. The name of the chapter is Egla Ufa, decapitated calf. And we learned a lengthy Mishnah about the elders of Yerushalayim, about the process of what they did. We'll start with the Gemara that will analyze the Mishnah. The Mishnah ruled that a blemished calf, so we're holding page 46. The Mishnah ruled that a blemished calf is fit to use as an egla rufa, as the decapitated calf. Indeed, the Torah never mentions blemishes as a disqualifying factor for egla rufa. So the Gemara, however, asks why we should derive from other sources.
Should we not?
Why the Gemara, however, asks why we should not derive from other sources that blemishes do disqualify an egla ufa. But let a blemish disqualify with respect to egla ufa from the following kal v'chomer. Comparing it to the red heifer. What does it say about the red heifer? That even though age does not disqualify it, can be a little older than usual, right? The paraduma, there is no upper limit to the age at which a cow may be used as a paraduma, as the red heifer. Although there is a minimum age requirement, but there is no upper limit, right? It could be 5 years old, 3 years old, 10 years old. But so nothing. The years do not disqualify it, but if it has a blemish, it does disqualify it. Possible. On the other hand, when it comes to egla rufa, sheshonim poislis bo, where age does disqualify it, it says a calf older than a year is not valid for the decapitated calf. So is it not common sense? Is it not logical that a blemish should also disqualify? You understand the comparison between the red heifer and the decapitated calf.
This one, no good. This one.
Paraduma, age is not a problem, but a blemish is a problem. So a decapitated calf, as age is a problem. How much more so that a blemish should be a problem?
Right.
That's it. So the Gemara says, no, don't compare the two. Shani also. Regarding a blemish, it is different. Asher ein boh mum, because the pasuk states in the Parah Aduma, a perfectly red cow, which has no blemish on it. Has no blemish. The word "it" is a limiting term, which implies that boh mum paisel, only on it the paraduma does a blemish disqualify. But a blemish does not disqualify with respect to egla rufa. So he wants to say that specifically when it comes to red heifer, the blemish will disqualify it. But when it comes to other egla rufa, it's not. But if so, that the word "it" is an exclusion that limits a law to the category in which it was stated, other forms of work should not disqualify a cow for use as a paraduma. We know that there's very strict laws about the red heifer. Besides that it needs to be completely red, you're not allowed to have a yoke on it. You can't place a yoke or burden on the animal. If you placed a burden on the animal, you destroy you can't use it as a red heifer. There was actually a goy that had.
How did it just pop up? That's one I don't understand.
Well, you have gingy people,
Okay.
right? How do they pop up? You have blondie people. You have dark people. What do you mean they disappear?
There's a certain time frame and a certain amount of the red heifers that we had. Isn't that correct?
So far, they had nine of them that were used. The 10th will be with Mashiach.
Okay.
But Could be that in the world since then there was other red heifers.
So often somebody says they got one.
Yeah. I don't know, genes, whatever it is, you have a red heifer. The point is, there was once a goy that had a red heifer, and the rabbis wanted to buy it from him.
Right.
They asked him if there was no burden placed on the animal. He said no. And they said, fine. So he told him, come tomorrow and we'll close the deal. In the meantime, he said, these rabbis are stupid. What does it make a difference if there was a burden on it, there was no burden? So he went, when they left, he took a bag of a sack of flour, put it on his back for a few minutes and took it off. The next day they came to close the deal. So they said, we want to do a final inspection. So they did the inspection. They said, sorry, we can't buy it. So why? He said, because there was a burden on it. He said, how do you know there was a burden? No cameras back then.
Right.
No radio telemetry, nothing.
Right.
How do they know? So he said, that once you put a burden on the animal, it starts to look back with his eyes. It turns his eyes back to find out what's on his back. It instinctively does it. Immediately, once you put it on, that's it. Now for life, he's going like this to figure out. So this guy lost a lot of money from the deal. He went on the roof and he jumped.
Good for him.
Yeah. So that just shows you they can't have any, besides the blemish, you can't even have a burden on the red heifer. But in the case of Egla Rufa, of the decapitated calf that was used for the procedure of atoning for a corpse that was found they don't know who killed them, found closer to a specific city, then it could have a blemish. It has other limitations like the year-old.
Right.
Yeah, it can be older, but not the same. So the Gemara says, if one placed a bundle of sacks on the cow, psulo, it is disqualified for use as a paradum. Uve'eglo ache timshech. But with respect to Egla Rufa, the calf can still be used until it holds the bundle. See? So here it says the calf can still be used. Different. Red heifer, you can't even place it on the cow so far. But with the Egla Rufa, the decapitated calf, you can have the burden on it, but you can't hold it. If it holds it, that becomes a problem. Okay? So it says holding up a bundle should not disqualify. The Gemara says, so holding up a bundle should not disqualify Po'adum at all. The Gemara says, for the use of the word it in the Egla Rufa passage should teach that the disqualification arising from burdens other than a yoke is just on its neck, right? So there's a burden that was placed on its back. Then is limited. So for the use of the word it in the Egla Rufa passage should teach that the disqualification arising from burdens other than a yoke is limited to the law of Egla Rufa and cannot be extended to Poro Aduma by means of a Kal V'chomer. The Gemara says, Shani Poro de Alfinan Oilul Meglo. Poro Aduma is different in this regard, for we derive its disqualification due to other forms of work from a Gezerah Shava between the word yoke found in the Poro Aduma passage and the word yoke found in the Egla Rufa passage. So in both cases, the word yoke is mentioned. This teaches that just as the other forms of work disqualify a calf from serving as an Egla Rufa, so too they disqualify a cow from serving as Poro Aduma. The Gemara asks, Egla nami teise oil ol mi poro. If so, then as regards the law of Egla Rufa as well, let it be derived from the very same Gezerah Shava, exegetical inference, logical inference between the word yoke in the Egla Rufa passage and the word yoke in the Poro Aduma passage. This should teach that just as blemishes disqualify for Poro Aduma, so too they disqualify for Egla Rufa. The Gemara responds, Hamiyat Rachmana Bah, but the merciful one excluded the blemishes from disqualifying for an Egla Rufa with the term it, as previously explained. Be'eglo namiksiv bo, but in the Egla Rufa pasuk that disqualifies an animal that performed work, it is also written it, and yet you expound the Gezerah Shava to teach that the work disqualification applies to Paraduma as well. That limiting term in the verse of Egla Rufa is needed to exclude Kochim, sacrificial offerings, the loy poslu b'avodah, to teach that the work does not disqualify animals from being used for them. Why is it necessary for the verse to teach this? You might think to say that a disqualification should be derived by means of a kal vachomer from Egla Rufa as follows. If we find concerning Egla Rufa that even though a blemish does not disqualify a calf from being used for it, avoida peseles bo, nevertheless work does disqualify it, kochim shemum peseles boem, then as regards to kochim, where a blemish does disqualify for them, is it not logical that work also disqualifies? The limiting term it of Egla Rufa is therefore needed to preclude this kal vachomer. The Gemara asks why a verse should be needed to preclude this kal vachomer when the kal vachomer itself can be refuted. But this kal vachomer can be challenged on the following ground. What can you derive from Egla Rufa when age disqualifies for it, whereas age is not disqualifying factor in kochim? This demonstrates that the law of Egla Rufa is in certain respect more stringent than the law of kochim, thereby refuting the kal vachomer. Or to kochim ileka defasli b'shonim, but are there not types of kochim that age disqualifies? Certainly there are. For what is the limiting term in the verse needed for those types of kochim that age does disqualify? But is the law that work does not disqualify kochim derived from here, from the term of Egla Rufa? The Gemara says no, it is not. Rather, it is derived from there, from the verse of kochim itself. Deals with kochim, with consecrated object, consecrated animals, as it says in a Baisa, one that is blind, or broken, or with a split eyelid, or a wart, or a dry skin eruption, or a moist skin eruption, you should not offer these to Hashem. This type of animal should not be offered to Hashem. These type of blemishes you should not offer to Hashem. But you may offer kochim with which work was done. The word it of Egla Rufa is not needed to teach this law. The Gemara says, the word it of Egla Rufa is still needed to teach that work does not disqualify kochim. You might think to say that this teaching of the Baita applies only when one performed permitted type of work with the animals. But what if you did forbidden work with them? What is the example of forbidden work? Such as walking on Shabbos with the animal. Or harnessing two different species of animal together, which is kilayim, putting an ox and a donkey together.
Behavior is different.
Aval Avedas, power is different.
Power and everything else.
Maybe if he did forbidden work, maybe they should be forbidden. Tzricha, therefore, the word it is needed to teach that even forbidden work does not render an animal unfit to be an offering. It is also derived from here. The passage discusses blemishes in kochim. From the hand of a stranger, you may not offer the food of your God from any of these. You may not offer these blemished animals that you may not offer. But you may offer kochim with which work was done. Since we know since we now have two sources in the passage about blemishes, for the law that work does not disqualify animals from use as kochim, one must be referring to permitted work, and the other two forbidden work. Itzterich, you still is still needed. Nevertheless, the it stated in the Egla Ufa passage is still needed to teach that work does not disqualify animals for use as kochim. You might think to say that these statements of the previous biases apply only where one worked with the animals while they were chulin. But if one worked with them when they're already consecrated, you might say that they became forbidden to be offered on the altar. Therefore, the word it in the Egla Ufa passage is needed to teach that even after they are consecrated, work does not invalidate them from being offered on the altar. And says, okay, now it gets to the practical aspect of it. If one placed a bundle of sacks on the cow, it is disqualified for use as paraduma. But with respect to Egla Rufa, the calf can still be used until it holds the bundle. So we see that with the red heifer is more stringent, because the moment you placed it, it's already disqualified to be used. You placed a burden on its back, it's over. You can't use it as paraduma. In case of Egla Rufa, if you placed it on its back, it's still not disqualified, but when it starts holding it, then it's disqualified. Walked with it a few steps, that's it, it's over. The Gemara says, Meisive oil, when he said the word yoke, in the paraduma passage, it stipulates that it be a cow upon which has not come a yoke. That's how the Torah described. I want a cow that did not have a yoke placed on it. Enli ela oil. Okay, what about other work that you can accomplish with the animal without putting a yoke? Right? You can say it is derived from kal v'chomer. You can say we can learn a kal v'chomer in a backward way. You know what's a kal v'chomer? Kal v'chomer means that you learn something easy to apply to something stringent. Okay, for example, you're not allowed to. If I'm going to tell you you're not allowed to punch somebody,
Right.
do I need to tell you you're not allowed to kill somebody? If I told you you're not allowed to punch him, how much more says that you're not allowed to kill him?
Right.
It's like if I tell you that the speed limit is 45, I don't need to tell you that 100 is obviously forbidden.
Right.
Not just 55, 65, but also 100 is, because it's obvious. This is the easier case. So how much more so? So in our situation, Egla Rufa is not as stringent as Paraduma. Paraduma is there's more severity to it, more strictness to it. It's like one of a kind. It's to have Paraduma atones for the impurity of the Jewish people. Someone was became contaminated to a dead person. They would sprinkle on a mitzvah. They would sprinkle on leopard. There's a tremendous amount of power had this concept had. It was
overall, these types of cows, right, were spiritual workers.
Spiritual and they took care of spiritual and physical impurity, and which the whole idea of impurity, you can't really say it's physical because it's not something tangible. Somebody's tummy. What do you mean tummy? Just because if you wash your hands in the morning with soap and I wash them with a keli,
right,
I'm pure and you're not. But how can you? You understand? You can't put a finger on it. The whole idea of impurity, but the red heifer ashes, after it was burnt and the whole process was done with it, if you would sprinkle it on a person, it would purify him. It's one of the things that King Solomon said that he tried to understand, he couldn't figure it out, because the coin that sprinkles the ashes on the person, on the impure person, he becomes tameh. the Kohen becomes Tomei and the person becomes pure. So it's
Yeah.
it's a complicated concept, but in general, it purifies people. That's what we need to know. Paraduma. So when it comes to Egla Rufa Mum, a blemish does not disqualify a calf from being used for it, for Egla Rufa, Sharvei Poislus Bo, but nevertheless other form of work do disqualify it. When it comes to red heifer, it needs to be perfect without a blemish. How much more so that if you would work with it, it becomes possible. So this is the reverse Kal V'chema. He says, comes to Egla Rufa, if you work with it, makes it you disqualified. Like we just said before, you place a burden on it and it holds it, it disqualifies it. But if it has a blemish, it's not disqualified. On the other hand, paraduma, if it has a blemish, it's disqualified. So how much more so that you're not allowed to do work with it? Ve'im nafshach loimar, and if you wish to say nemar kan oil, it says regarding to paraduma the word yoke. Ve'nemar lalan oil, and it says regarding egla rufa, it says also the word yoke, the decapitated calf. Malalan shawa is possible, but just as there it comes to paraduma, other work disqualify a calf from being used for an egla rufa, and regarding egla rufa, afkan shawa is possible. So to here, other forms of work disqualifies a cow from being used for paraduma. You understand? People can ask the question, says, what? The Torah says yoke, but what if I do other work with it? Like, for example, you can have the cow threshing your wheat.
Yeah.
Threshing grain. Just put it in your granary, and it would step on the olives, or it steps on the grapes,
Right.
and it does the job.
That's not a burden?
That's what the Torah. That's what
It's
we're trying to
work.
say. If you play it, you can, because
You're trying
someone
to be
can
cute.
play stupid. Someone try to be cute. He says, "Well, the Torah says yoke. I didn't put a yoke. I didn't put a burden on the animal. I just put it inside the threshing floor. So I walked on and it did the job for me." We want to learn also that no work should be done with it whatsoever, even though it's not clearly, deliberately said in the Torah that you should not do these types of work with it. Because the Torah is not going to start giving me now all different possibilities of work that it shouldn't be done. The Torah said in general, no yoke should be, and you need to understand by yourself. That's what the Gemara is trying to figure it out. From other sources, you have to imply that no other work should be done with it.
Now, I'm going to reverse the engine for 1 second here. And when we go back in the DVD of life, you said about the Kohen making the impure person now no longer Tomei. Why would the Kohen at its high level of spirituality want to become Tomei for the average?
Because of the
person?
great question, but Cohen would do it because of the great love of the Jewish people. So they're willing to undermine themselves for the sake of others.
So you could have done another cleansing process about leaving it out for 7 days and
No, so obviously the impurity that the Kohen contract is a much lighter type of impurity.
Okay.
So he stays impure till the evening. He goes to the mikvah and he's pure.
Oh, okay.
On the other type of tumor, the leopard tumor, he has to be 2 weeks out,
Right,
and he has to
right.
whole process.
But if it's a regular person and they had whatever Tomei situation,
Yeah.
could they wait till darkness and go bathing, or it would be more extensive time frames and challenging things?
No, I believe that the sprinkling itself, there's a few things what can be done by. There's a few things that can be done by a non-Kohen. There's certain things that have to be done by a Kohen.
Right.
But the point is that the one who sprinkles the ashes,
Mm-hmm.
his impurity is not the same as the impurity of the person he purified.
Okay.
Otherwise, it's counterproductive. It's like,
Right.
what are you doing? You're making somebody pure, but the other person is
Right.
becoming.
That's what I'm
Yeah.
getting at. Yep.
So anyhow, it says, "Ma'im nafshech oloima." You with us?
Yeah.
Ma'im nafshech oloima. What is meant by, if you wish to say, how can a kal v'chomer be refuted? V'chi teima ikal mifrach. Maybe you can refute it. Ma le'egla sheken shonim pasuk. When it comes to egla rufa, if it's old, it's become disqualified because it needs to be a year old. The latest, the oldest, it could be a year old. Inami kochim yuchichu. Alternatively, the law of kochim demonstrate the falsity of the kal of this kal v'chem. Shemun poisel bon. For blemish disqualify kochim ve'enavoid the poisel bon, and yet work does not disqualify them, proving that even where the blemishes are a disqualifying factor, it does not follow that work. Since the kal v'chemer can be challenged on either of these grounds, the Brisa said that the law can be derived from a gezerah shava as follows. Ne'emar kan oil v'ne'emar lalan oil. It says the word yoke here in the verse of paraduma, and it says the word yoke there in the verse of egla rufa. Ma lalan shar avedas. Just as their other forms of work disqualify, afkan shar avedas, so too their other forms of work disqualify. Having explained the need for gezerah shava, the Gemara presents its challenge to Rav from this place. Umimokim shava sheboso, but from the very place you came to derive this law, egla rufa, you should also derive the following. Mala lana shetimshoch, just as there a calf is still fit to use as an egla rufa until it holds a bundle. Afkan shetimshoch, so to here regards the paraduma, a cow should be fit for use until it holds the bundle. Why does Rav state that merely placing a bundle on a cow disqualifies it from being used as a paraduma? Tanoi, it is a tanoic dispute. Deika de maisilo megla. For while there are some tanoim who derive this disqualification from egla rufa, there are some who derive it from the verse of paraduma itself. According to this Tanoim, the law regarding paraduma is not limited by the form of the law that applies to egla rufa. The Tanya oil, and the oil Shabbos Menam, it says a yoke. How do we know about other works? Talmud lema shalal oil. The Torah states upon which has not come a yoke, implying that the placing of any burden whatsoever disqualifies him. So if so, that all forms of work make a cow unfit for use as paraduma, why does the Torah say specifically a yoke? A yoke disqualifies whether it is placed on the cow at a time of work or not at the time of work. But other types of work, it disqualifies it only if your intention for it is to do work. For example, so if a paraduma would walk on the threshing floor by itself, does not disqualify it. Right. But if it was time of work and I'm placing it there intentionally, then it disqualifies it. But say that the word upon which has not placed a yoke on it constitute a generalization implying all forms of work. All prat. The word yoke is is specification. You're specifying a specific thing should not be on top of the animal, should not be placed on the animal. And you have klalu prat. You have a generalization, lo yale aleh, that nothing should come on top of it. And then it says oil, and so you have generalization and specification. The generalization is understood to include only what is included in the specification. That's the formula of the Torah. That when you have a klal and prat, you have generalization and specification. The generalization is limited to the specification. So it says oil ein midyachrin alo. So thus we should derive that a yoke is indeed disqualifies a cow from being used as a paraduma, and other things do not. Asher ribuyahu. So the word which is inclusive term. V'tanya nami gabe egla kai gavna oil en li elo shar voice. How do I know about other works? Talmud lema shalu ubad bo. The Torah therefore state which no work has been done. Mikol makom. Nevertheless, imkin ma Talmud lema oil. Why does the Torah say specifically a yoke? Oil poisel b'mishas avoda b'mishas shelo b'mishas. Yoke disqualifies whether in the time of work or not in the time of work. Other forms of work disqualify a calf only at the time of work. Oil prat. klal uprat, when you have a generalization specification, ein v'klal masher prat, ein oil, ein midi achrina lo. Indeed, it says we should derive that pulling a yoke, indeed, disqualifies a calf from being used as an egel ufa, but other things do not. Asher ibuel, the word asher, which in the phrase which has not been pulled with a yoke, is an inclusive term which teaches that all forms of work disqualifies the calf. Pulling a yoke is for how much? How far must the calf pull the yoke to become disqualified for use as an egla ufa? He said to me, a distance equivalent to the size of a yoke. Rabbi Yochanan referring to the equivalent of the yoke's length or to the equivalent of its width. Pulling the yoke a distance equivalent to its width. Tefach, which is 5 inches. Velema tefach, why doesn't it say tefach? Kamashman shiur deol tefach. It says Rabbi Yochanan means to inform us that the size of the yoke is tefach, is about 5 inches. And why does he want to teach it to us? For business, for selling, buying and selling, to know what the, I guess, the normal size of a yoke. Why does it say that you have to bring the calf into a valley called Esan, Nachal Esan, to atone for the unsolved murder? Right? Eglauf, unsolved murder. You're bringing the calf into this place called Nachal Eitan, the valley of Eitan. So, Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu, this is the answer. Why is it brought to this valley? Hashem said, Yovador shelo saperos, Yovmokov sheno saperos. Something that never produced fruits, like the calf is a year old, so it didn't have the chance yet to conceive and to have offsprings. Right?
Did they ever have?
No, I'm talking about the actual calf. Right,
Okay.
A baby cow. Baby cow is a baby cow. It didn't have a chance to yet have children. No, they're talking about the egla ufa, decapitated calf.
Oh, okay.
It has to be because egla ufa can be a little older. So, but right now it says you're talking about the decapitated calf. Why does it brought to the valley of Esan? So it says Hashem says something that never beget any offsprings. Okay, will come to a place that will never be, because the halacha is that the place where they had to do the procedure was the decapitated calf. You're not allowed to sow, plant. You're not allowed to use that grounds forever. Can't use these grounds for a purpose of growing. Nothing will grow there. So over here it tells you, the Holy One, blessed be, said, let something, a calf that has not borne fruit come. He should come, and be decapitated at a place that does not produce fruits. Okay, and thus atone for the murder of one who was not allowed to bear fruit. My peros, what is meant by the murdered person not having been allowed to bear fruit? If you say that it means that he was not afforded the opportunity to produce children. Maybe for an elderly victim or castrated victim that would not, maybe we shouldn't decapitate unsolved murder because these people anyway would not produce any fruits. Since such people were incapable of producing children in any case, clearly this is not so. We're still going to bring the Ela mitzvahs. Where Rabbi Yochanan ben Shol was referring to the commandments the murdered person could have fulfilled had he not been killed. Imagine how much mitzvah a person, really killing a person, is taking his ability to do mitzvahs anymore. And this is the biggest crime of killing. Not that he took his life away, that by taking his life away, you stopped him from doing mitzvahs.
Right.
Every single second he could have acquired more and more mitzvahs. So it says they would bring the calf down to the Asan Valley. What is the Asan Valley? It says something that is difficult, something that is hard. Asan implies hard. Tanu Rabon Minal Asan Shukosh. How do we know that the word Asan is applying to something that is hard? Shenema, because it says Asan Moshavecha V'sim B'sela Kinecha. Strong is your dwelling, and set in a rock is your nest. Scripture also says, "Hear, O mountains, the controversy of Hashem, and the strong ones, the Asan ones, the foundation of the earth." Others says, how do we know that Asan also means ancient? It says Asan nation. It is a nation from the beginning of the world. Then the Gemara speaks about the procedure of what was done with the red heifer. So it says, and they decapitate the calf with a cleaver from the back of its neck. Okay, a cleaver from the back of its neck. That was part. Okay. My timer, why was it done in that way? So it says Gomal Arif Mechat Saif. The Tana derives this from a Gezer Shava, logical inference between the word Arifa in the verse of Egla Rufa. Arifa means neck, and the word Arifa in the verse. Arifa really means decapitating, but Oref is meaning neck. So it has to be. You got to chop his head off, but from the back, not from the front.
Wow.
Yeah. But so it was done twice. It was done by the birds, with the pigeons, that they did melika, and it was done also with egla rufa. That's the two times that just the word oref, back of the neck, used there teaches that melika, sacrificial slaughter of a bird chatos, bird sin offering, is done at its nape, the upper part of the back of its neck. So too the decapitation of the egla rufa is performed at the nape of its neck. Then the place is forever prohibited to be planted or worked. The place of where it was done. The pasuk states, in Asan Valley, in which no work be done in it, nor can it be planted. Leshova, in the past, this refers to not having been worked in the past. The Torah disqualifies any site once worked. Div Rabbi Yoshia. Rabbi Menashe Amitay, what was done in the past I don't care about. I'm actually worrying about the future, that from now on nothing will be worked with it. If the place was used before, it's okay, according to one opinion. Everyone agrees that in the future you should not work with this place. No planting and no work should be done with it. When do they argue l'shava about the past? Rabbi Yeshua saw miksiv v'lo yu'ubad, doesn't say yu'ubad. Miksiv v'lo yu'ubad. Is it written and it shall not be worked? Therefore it should be okay if work was done with it in the past. Rabbi Menashe never, but Rabbi Menashe is written which has not. It's vice versa. It's the other way around. Rabbi Yeshua saw miksiv v'lo yu'ubad it is written and it shall not be worked, which is referring to the future. Rabbi Menashe never, but Rabbi Menashe said it is written which has not been worked, which would clearly imply a statement regarding the past. The Gemara says no. Therefore, the words "no work be done in it" should be understood to refer to the future, not the past. So this is machlokes. What do you do with the past? If it was worked in the past, it's okay or it's not okay. The place, the grounds where they're going to do this procedure, if work was done with it in the past, it should be, if it's okay or not. Rabbi Yeshua shel shavar mashma, but Rabbi Yeshua contends that the word "which" implies a reference to the past. Rabbi Menashe asher ribuyo, but Rabbi Menashe contends that the word "which" is an inclusive term that is written for exegetical purposes and is not intended to change the tense of the verse. It is permitted to comb flax. I guess you're sitting down there, you're not actually working with the soil, you're working on top of this ground. To comb flax and to chisel stones there. I know about planting. How about other works? In which no work be done in it. Implying any work whatsoever. Why does it have to tell me no can it be planted? Planting is distinctive because it's being performed in the land itself. So too all work that is performed in the land itself is forbidden. When this excludes from the prohibition the combing of flax and the chiseling of stones. That are not being performed in the land itself. But say that the words in which no work be done in it are a generalization implying all forms of work. And the words nor can it be planted are a specification. And apply the rule that when a generalization is followed by a specification, the generalization includes only that which is in the specification. Hence, we should say that planting is indeed forbidden, but other forms of work are not. Why does the Vaisa forbid all forms of work involving the soil? The term which, in which no work be done, is an inclusive term that teaches that all work is forbidden provided it involves the land itself. And the elders of the town wash their hands. They wash their hands with water at the site of the decapitation of the calf. The Vaisa cites the source of this law for washing the hands. The washing has to take place at the decapitation site. It says all of them clearly. Pasuk says that you should wash their hands. What does it say? Ha'arufa with a hey. The site of the decapitation of the calf. And then they have to say, we didn't do it. We didn't do this. We didn't kill this person. Gemara says, 1 second, while we would think that they're based in the rabbis would kill a person, that they have to say we didn't do it. Imagine you have an unsolved murder and you ask the chief rabbi to swear that he didn't do it. Go ask some criminal that he didn't do it. We're asking the Sanhedrin, the rabbis of the court. So the Gemara says, do we really think that they are the court are spillers of blood? Ella, rather what they said, if he would have come to us, we would not let him go without food, and if he would have come to us, we would not let him go without escort.
Did that have to be done at a certain time of day?
It was done during the day. We compel a person to escort his fellow from the city. If somebody comes to visit you, you have a mitzvah to escort him, to walk. It says for the reward for fulfilling the mitzvah of escort is without limit. And the watchers saw a man leaving the city, and they said to him, show us the approach to the city, and we will deal kindly with you. Now, just so you understand what happened there, it says in the book of Judges, chapter 1, verse 24, the passage records the campaign mounted by the tribes of Ephraim and Menashe as part of the conquest of the land of Israel. Now, they're in war to capture the city of Beit Kel. They're trying to capture a city, the entrance of which was hidden. They didn't know what the entrance to the city. So they came and they told the guard to cooperate with them. And what did they tell him? Show us the entrance. They told him, show us the entrance. And we are going to do chesed with you. We're going to do chesed with you afterwards. Show us now the approach to the city, and we will deal kindly with you afterward. And it says that he showed them. And what? So he performed the mitzvah of escort, the main part of which is to set the traveler on the best road to which destination without mishap. Not physically walk them. The Maharsha said he actually showed them the way. He showed them how to get there. So this is really a type. It's also a type of escort that you explain somebody how to get to his destination, where he wants to go. So it says. So how did they? What type of chesed did they do with him? So it says, and what act of kindness did they do with him? For the entire population of the city, they killed by the sword. That man and his family they sent away unharmed. Imagine he saved his whole family just by showing them the door. So the man went to the land of Chittis and he built a city and he called it Luz. And the name of this city is until this very day. Now hear about this city Luz is something special. This is the Luz where they died techeles. He Luz shebas ancherev veloy bilbelo. This is the Luz to which the Assyrian king Sancherib came and did not disarrange it. He did not exile its inhabitants and replace them with others. Sancherib was a vicious king, and he wanted control. And one of the ways for him to gain control is that he dislocated people from their homes. So what he did, he said, if you're living in Boca, from now on you live in Georgia. You're gonna move to Savannah. The people in Savannah, you're gonna move to Louisiana. People of Louisiana, he wanted everyone dispersed and not to feel at home. So this way, they don't feel like the owners of the land, because he kept on moving them around. But the city of Luz was not. He didn't do it to them. Nebuchadnezzar, he did not exile its inhabitants and replaced them with others. Nebuchadnezzar, and to which the Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar came and did not destroy it. And even the angel of death has no permission to pass through it. Now this is the kicker over here. Imagine, Ella, listen to this. Rather, the elderly in the city, when their minds become weary of life and they wish to die, old people, they get to a point, enough is enough, we don't want to be here anymore. So would go out of the city and they would die. If you're in that city, you're protected, you're never not dying. You go out of the city of Luz, you die. So that's so elderly people would, when they became weary and they didn't want to live anymore, they left town. Physically and spiritually and completely they left town.
Yes,
they would die.
Interesting.
So now, why did they merit to build such a city? This man that just showed them the way, he escorted them to show you the reward, because the Gemara teaches us that the reward for escort has no limits. It says, look at what did the guy do? He showed them the entrance. He was saved. His family was saved. He goes into the city, and he's showered with so many blessings that no one dies in his city. The angel of death is not allowed to cross through town. And it says, listen to this, the Canaanite, this guy, he didn't even show them the way, he didn't say words to them, he just pointed. He didn't even move his feet. Caused salvation for himself and his descendants to the end of time. Maybe it's that place in Japan. I heard there's a place in Japan where people are living to like 120, 114.
Yeah.
You heard about it?
Yeah.
So it says, the one who performs the mitzvah Imagine he didn't do even escorting with his feet. He just showed them the way with his hand, or he winked or whatever. He showed them the way. Imagine someone who actually escorts somebody.
Yeah.
That's a special.
Performs the mitzvah of escort with his feet by actually walking with a traveler. Allah has come, how much more so he is worthy of unlimited reward. How did he show them the approach to the city? He twisted his mouth for them. He mouthed directions without actually uttering the words. That's it. He didn't even say the words. That's according to Chizkiah. According to Rabbi Yochanan, he pointed with his finger, and that was it.
What was the reason for that?
He didn't want to get in trouble.
Okay.
He was espionage.
Okay.
I mean, he was used as giving information. It's like espionage for the enemy. Right?
Okay.
The tribe of Rabbi Menashe coming to conquer the town. He is the guard in the town. He's showing them the entrance.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess he figured out it's over.
So he actually mouthed and moved hands.
So there's two opinions. One says that he mouthed without uttering the words.
Okay.
And they figured out. And one opinion that he pointed with his finger.
Nothing written though.
No, nothing written, nothing spoken, and he didn't even move. His body did not move with them. He did not walk with them to show them the way.
Now, before this all happened, was there any notification to that city?
Well, according to Jewish law, there are three things that you have to always you have to ask them to leave,
right,
or to stay, and pay you taxes and be subjugated to you,
right,
or to fight. So they got the three options: either leave peacefully,
mm-hmm.
or
or
stay,
right.
or stay, be subjugated to us, or fight. So they chose to fight.
Okay.
One who travels on the road and has no escort. So you're going by yourself. Yasik v'Torah should engage in Torah studies. You should have in mind thoughts of Torah. Mm-hmm. So the Torah is with him.
Did they get Torah during this fight? Like King David would?
Well, they would actually, in the time of war, they would take the ark.
Oh, wow.
The ark itself they would take with them. But and it says, for they, the words of Torah, are a gracious accompaniment for your head and chains around your neck. It's protecting you. Because of 4 steps that Paro, king of Egypt, escorted Avram. 4 steps. It says that Paro commended men upon him, Avram, and they sent him off and his wife. He was able to hold Avram's children in subjugation, in slavery, for 400 years. Just because of the 4 steps that he took and he escorted Avram. Avram's children will serve them and they will afflict them for 400 years. Whoever escorts his friend 4 amos in town at the beginning of his journey ensures that his friend will not come to harm during the course of the trip. So by you escorting someone else when he goes on a trip, it's ensuring that that person will not be harmed in his trip. Ravina escorted Rav Yitzchak 4 amos in town. What is 4 amos? 6 feet. It's nothing.
Right.
And during his journey, a potentially harmful situation occurred to Rav Bar Yitzchak, and he was saved. His escape can be attributed to Ravina's escort as the very start of the journey. A teacher to his student up to the extension of the town from which he is departing. A friend to a friend up to the Shabbos boundary, which is 2,000 amas. Talmid l'Rav en lo shiur, a student to his teacher, has no limit. V'chama, and how far must the student escort his teacher? Amar Rav Sheshet ad Parsa, up to Parsa, beyond the city. 8,000 amas. 4 mil, which is 8,000 amos. V'lo amoron el rabbi shen muvak, and we have said that this only with regard to not his primary teacher. Aval rabbi muvak shlosh pasot, but if regarding his primary teacher, you have to walk 3 pasot, which would be 24,000 amos.
Wow.
Yeah. You want to do the math? It's you do 24,000.
32,000 feet.
No, you do 24,000 amos times 18 divided by 12, because 18 each amma is about 18 inches.
Right. Yeah. I just
So
added,
so if you do 24,000 by 18, and then you divide the number by foot, and it tells you the distance by foot. Anyhow,
that's what, like
so we see the
600
primary
miles.
teacher, you need to escort him for a longer distance, for 3 parasois, which is about 8,000 feet, 8,000 amos. Rav Kahana alve l'Rav Shimon bar Ashi mipum Naharad beitzinos l'Bovel. Rav Kahana escorted Rav Shimon bar Ashi from Pum Naharo to Benzino of Babylon, where many palm trees grow. Kimot also Omarle, when they came there, Rav Kahana said to Rav Shimi Barashi, Vadai damrisu, it is true what you say that Hanitzi Nosu de Bavel Mishnei Odom Rishon Isnu. These palm trees of Babylonia are in existence from the time of Adam, the first man. Omarle, Ad Karton Milso de Omar Rabbi Yossi bar Rechaina, you have reminded me something of which Rabbi Yossi the son of Rechaina said, Mai dechtiv, what is the meaning of that which is written in a land through which no person passed and where no man Adam settled? Since no one ever passed through the land, how could anyone have settled there? And since no one settled in the land, how could anyone have passed through it? Rather, the pasuk means that any land which Adam, the first man, decreed for settlement was eventually settled. But any land which Adam, the first man, did not decree for settlement was not settled. He decided what land will be settled and what land will not be settled. Maybe the Arctic was not decided by Adam.
Arctic is Antarctic is better.
It was not decreed for settlement by Adam Arisha.
Arctic is an ocean. The Antarctic is
The Antarctica, right? Antarctica,
South.
this whole area,
in the
North Pole area.
North Pole got nothing.
They said the thickness of the ice is going like miles and miles into the bottom. It's not just ice on top. It's
No,
like
it's
go all the way deep.
There's deep ice in certain areas.
Right.
Yeah.
But you can take submarines under it. They have. Right.
Even under the
In the Arctic, yeah.
well, there's certain areas that have water,
Right.
right?
They got the radar, so they pretty
So here another example of Rav Mordechai that escorted Rav Ashi from Agonia to a place called Bei Kife. And others say he even went further to a place called Beido. Whoever does not escort a traveler, or who travels and is not escorted, is as if he sheds blood. Because this is a very interesting story. It says, had the people of Jericho escorted Elisha, when he left the city, he would not incited bears to attack the children who mocked him. So what happened? People of Jericho called Elisha. Elisha was a prophet. They called Elisha and they said to him, they have a problem with the water in town. I think the water were bitter, or they didn't have water in town. So Elisha came and he turned the water to be sweet. He blessed them and the water turned sweet. Okay? So on his way out of town, after he fixed the problem of the town, there was a group of kids not literally kids, but youngsters, that their job was to bring water from another town to this town, and by his blessing, he took away their livelihood. So instead they mocked him. They called him bold, whatever. They said some silly things to him. They got him upset. Because they got him upset. He said something. He cursed them, and bears came and attacked these kids and killed them. So the Gemara tells us, if the people of Jericho would have escorted Elisha, this incident would have not taken place, because the kid would not have the audacity to mock Elisha, the prophet, in front of everyone. Right? But since he went alone, they felt comfortable to mock him. And they irritated him so much that he cursed them. They have a different explanation why he did it. Some say that they were very he saw that nothing good will come out of them. There are different interpretations of what exactly took place. But it said he went up from there, from Yericho to Beit Kel, and he was going up on the road. And little youth came out of the city and derided him. Derided him. And they said to him, "Go away, bold one, go away, bold one." So they called him Baldy.
Bold as a B-O-L-D?
Bold.
Okay.
B-A-L-D. So you have made this place bold for us. You have taken away our source of livelihood. So they implied, you destroyed the source of our livelihood, because we can't anymore work in the water industry, in carrying water from one place to the other, and that's it. So that was their this is why they called him bold. But again, if they were escorted, if Elisha was escorted by the people of the town, this would not happen. Why does the meaning little youth? If you tell me that they are youth, I know they're little. Why do you have to say little youth? It's a double expression.
Right.
So it says, so it says there were nar. Nar can also mean someone that is menuar. Menuar would mean emptied. Is emptied from mitzvahs. He wanted to say this youth, they were emptied from mitzvahs. They didn't do any mitzvahs. And also they were called little because they didn't have faith. So if this parnasa doesn't work, you try something else. But that's not the only source of that's the only channel that God has for you to provide you your parnasa through carrying water from one place to another. They should have believed in Hashem that He will find another source for their livelihood. So that's called ktanim, because they are small in their faith. They didn't have faith in Hashem that He will provide them in a different way. They will not starve to death. They were called little because they demeaned themselves by acting like little children. Maybe that's the name of the place. So it says, and Aram had gone out in raiding parties and had taken captive from Eretz Yisrael a little naro, a little girl, and we had the following difficulty. Naro ketano, again we're using the double expression young woman and also little. A minor from the town of Ne'erim. Similarly, the pasuk here perhaps refers to people as Ne'erim because they came from a place called Ne'erim. Also, because over here it says clearly Erichoi. So you can't say that their place was Ne'erim. It says, Elisha turns to them and he curses them with the name of God. And once he did that, bears suddenly appeared and attacked them. Elisha turned around and he saw them and he cursed them in the name of Hashem. This is, the Gemara asks, what did he see? Maro, Omarav, what did he see? Ro mamash, he saw them in a literal sense. He gazed at them for the purpose of punishing them. He had a way of gazing at someone with the purpose of punishing, and that would do it. Whenever it states that the sages set their eyes upon someone, is resulted in either death or poverty, if they gaze their eyes at something. Shmuel said that he saw that all of them, their mother became pregnant on Yom Kippur, which is forbidden relationship to. It's forbidden to have a relationship on Yom Kippur, but he saw that their conception was on Yom Kippur. Okay? Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha said no. He saw that they had long locks of hair, such as the Amorites sport, long locks of hair. Rabbi Yochanan says he saw that they did not have in them even a trace of a mitzvah. They were empty from mitzvahs, nothing, and were not deserving that their punishment be mitigated. They didn't find any merits in them. But okay, so the Gemara is okay. You didn't see any merits in them, but maybe the children that they would have had, they will have merits and they will do mitzvahs. That when he gazed at them, he saw that they are emptied from mitzvahs, and their future children will be emptied from mitzvahs, and their grandchildren will be emptied from mitzvahs. So he said, that's it. There's no merit. That's the opinion of Rabbi Loza. And 2 bears came out of the forest, and they tore apart 42 children. Rav Shmuel, Chad Omar Nes, v'Chad Omar Nes b'toch Nes. There's a dispute between Rav and Shmuel. One says it was one miracle, that the bears suddenly appeared. And there's another opinion that says it was double miracle. Suddenly a forest was created, and the bears showed up. And we'll continue this discussion, God willing, tomorrow.